Influence on the World. I'm your host, Xinyu Zhang. I'm pleased to have Vice President of CQ Roll Call, Steve Komarow with me on Channel 10. Hi, Steve.
I'm the health and economy, technology, defense, and foreign policy.
What is the ISIS? Why is it caused this problem?
Well, the civil war in Syria really is the root cause of the refugee crisis. It has given birth to not only rebels against the regime in Syria, but also what we Americans call ISIS, the Islamic State, which is a very radical Islamic movement that gained territory in both Syria and in Iraq. And people have been fleeing the territory where they are. They have a very strict Islamic rule and have been known to kill their enemies, take women as slaves, and a lot of people have fled them and fled the fighting into the neighboring countries. And as you know, many have tried to get into Europe.
This essay is very crucial, but why is attracting a lot of people from so many countries to fight alongside ISIS?
Well, they have made a big effort to recruit people on things like social media and working through networks of friends in the religious community that supports them. And it's a very pure, fundamentalist Islamic ideology that they have, and that has attracted young men and women, even from Western countries such as England.
Aside from ISIS, are there any other extremist groups? Who are they?
Well, it's an area where there are a lot of different militias and groups. Now, some of them are supported by the United States, which does not support the regime of Assad. Now, Russia has begun to enter into the fight on Assad's side. So you have a situation where the U.S. is helping to fight both Assad and ISIS, while the Russians are supporting Assad, and they say they're fighting ISIS, but they've actually been bombing areas supported where the militias are that are supported by the United States.
Yes, I heard about that. Recently, President Putin called for the security coordination with like Turkey, Jordan, and other countries. Do you think it's a reality?
Well, all of the countries have different interests here. Turkey has a big problem with a large number of refugees coming in, and President Erdogan has promised to stop the flow of them. Russia's intervention makes that situation worse. Russia, as you know, is sharing intelligence with Iran and Iraq and rallying those forces against the rebels who are fighting Assad. So it's a very complicated situation, and the one thing that keeps happening is the people fleeing from the war areas, and that puts a lot of stress on countries including Lebanon and Jordan, which have been otherwise relatively peaceful countries, and the huge number of refugees threatens to make them less stable.
Yeah, so I mean, what's the solution can solve that problem? What about other countries in that region? For example, like Turkey or Iran, what's the role?
Well, Iran is supporting Assad. It has its militia, the Hezbollah, which helps him hold on to power. And Hezbollah has knowledge on the ground and some advantages in helping him. You have a Shia-Sunni divide here, so there's some deeply felt rivalries that are playing out between these two sides.
So now is the refugees to other countries. Do you think, so who is responsible for taking care of them? Should other countries open the door to all of them?
Well, that's a question that is different depending on the country. As I said, Jordan and Lebanon have let a lot of them in. Europe, it's become a big controversy. Germany let a certain number in and then tries to close the door. Hungary has been very hesitant to let refugees in. And a lot of people are critical of the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries, because they have not been letting refugees in, even though they are also Arab-speaking countries where the refugees might be more comfortable culturally.
What about Israel?
Well, Israel is not going to do this. It would just complicate the situation in Israel. They have very limited ability to get involved because none of these countries is an ally of Israel on either side. There's not one of these militias is an ally of Israel.
Yeah, I think each country also concern their own security too. So how do you think someone suggests, I don't know where the resource I got it, but they said create a free region for ISIS in the north of the countries on the border of the Turkey. Is possible?
I'd say anything is possible. ISIS is pretty good at defending its territory. You have airstrikes against them by the U.S. and Iraq, and yet they've been able to hold on. If you look at a map, you'll see that a large part of Syria and a big chunk of Iraq is under ISIS control. The forces in Iraq, which has an army backed by the United States, have been unable to drive them out. Most recently, they tried to drive ISIS out of Ramadi, which is the regional capital in Anbar province. And they haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to mount an attack to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned Syria. With Syria, the crisis is getting worse now in its country?
I think the crisis keeps getting worse because of the time it's gone on. People who could try to wait out the violence can't wait anymore. More and more of the infrastructure gets destroyed, and people just can't live there anymore, and they've given up and decided to leave.
So what is the solution, possible solution? Is Assad left immediately? Could Syria achieve peace?
The United States position is that Assad and Iraq, and yet they've been able to hold on. If you look at a map, you'll see that a large part of Syria and a big chunk of Iraq is under ISIS control. The forces in Iraq, which has an army backed by the United States, have been unable to drive them out. Most recently, they tried to drive ISIS out of Ramadi, which is the regional capital in Anbar province. And they haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to mount an attack to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned Syria. With Syria, the crisis is getting worse now in its country?
I think the crisis keeps getting worse because of the time it's gone on. People who could try to wait out the violence can't wait anymore. More and more of the infrastructure gets destroyed, and people just can't live there anymore, and they've given up and decided to leave.
So what is the solution, possible solution? Is Assad left immediately? Could Syria achieve peace?
the United States position is that Assad cannot remain if there's any kind of
other countries except for Russia in that area, which country could be?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I think as the Syria, it's the government, if they want to cooperate with the other group around that area in that region, except for Russia, fight against ISIS, which country
Well,
they can
yeah, they
do
do
it.
have cooperation with a couple of countries. Most significantly is Iran. The Syrian government for a long, long time has been supported by Iran, and that's a significant ally for them.
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International's educational programs, or to make a tax-free donation, contact cfrip at aol.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America and Reading is Fundamental.
Welcome, Lens on the World. I'm your host, Xin Yuzhang. Welcome back, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so talk about Russia involved in the regions. So what are the terms of Moscow III and Geneva III?
Well, it's not so much a question of terms, it's a question of whether these discussions can yield a path forward. And we haven't seen that yet. Most of the world community isn't buying into these talks quite yet. I think that there are some things going forward, though. Russia has approached the U.S. to begin more direct talks over how the airstrikes in Syria are conducted, and that reduces the chances of something terrible happening. You don't want this to spark a wider war. And there have been problems. For example, Turkey, which is an ally of the U.S., has complained about Russian airplanes crossing over into its territory. And you wouldn't want to get a fight going on between Russia and Turkey.
I heard about that the U.S. airstrike also is conduct some action, take some action in Syria. But Syria, the airstrikes also is going on there. Do they have any conflict?
Mean the U.S. and Russia strikes?
Yeah, U.S. and Russia strikes and the Syria strikes. Do they have any conflict?
Well, they do in that the Russians and the Syrians they support are attacking the rebels that the U.S. supports. So from the U.S. standpoint, it reduces the chances of Assad getting pressured to leave office, which ultimately can reduce the chances of a lasting peace. That's the U.S. position.
Iran nuclear deal, that is a very good one too, right?
Well, I think the nuclear deal between the U.S. and Iran, well, it really is just beginning. The process is just beginning there. Is a step forward in reducing the tensions between the U.S. and Iran, assuming that Iran carries out its part of the deal. A lot of people are suspicious that it won't. But as a result of their negotiations, clearly there is some communication between the two countries, between the U.S. and Iran. Iran is a very important ally of Assad, so communication is usually a good thing, usually helps reduce the tensions.
Oh, so we have to wait to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. How is the Syria relationship with Komarow today? Do they have any direct relationship, you think?
I haven't heard, I haven't been to Cairo lately. I haven't heard of a strong relationship between the countries. It's probably a little bit better than it was before Sisi took power from Morsi. Morsi, who was with the Muslim Brotherhood, was less likely to support Assad than the Sisi current government.
Do you think U.S. have done enough, like for refugees and for the wars, then negotiation with other countries? For example, would Israel and the Palestinians, they played a role. So what the U.S. can play a big role in that area? Well,
there's a push in Congress right now by members to increase the U.S. aid for humanitarian support for the refugees. Part of this would be to let some more people come into the U.S., or at least to speed the process. The U.S. is very careful about letting people in because of the 9/11 attack. They don't want to let terrorists in with the good people. So the security process is a long and careful process. But part of the effort also is to supply funding and supplies, especially for like Jordan and Lebanon, where they have so many refugees, and they're relatively small countries that don't have the resources to support them.
Welcome to Lens on the World. I'm your host, Xinyu Zhang. I'm pleased to have Vice President of CQ Roll Call, Steve Komarow, with me on Channel 10. Hi, Steve.